Hey painting friends, it's Stoof here. Welcome back to my channel. The holidays are just around the corner, so this week I wanted to create a festive acrylic painting tutorial for you guys. This is the painting. So we are going to paint a Christmas tree. It's just like a tree out in a field of other Christmas trees. But this is a special Christmas tree that is illuminated with a bunch of little Christmas lights on it. So we are going to do this acrylic painting tutorial in real time. We're going to talk about our materials and then we'll get started with this tutorial. While I have you here, if you are not subscribed to this channel yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of my fun painting tutorials like this one. Alright guys, let's get started with this tutorial. Alright painting friends, let's talk about materials. So we have a 12-inch by 16-inch canvas panel that I'll be working on today. You're welcome to work on any canvas panel or canvas or paper, any type of substrate that works best for you. I have a cup of water here. I have another little canvas with the plastic on it still that I'm using as a palette for today. For our acrylic paint colors, we have carbon black, phthalo blue, dioxazine purple, raw umber, cobalt blue, sap green, titanium white, Hansa yellow light, Naphthol red light, raw sienna, and cadmium yellow deep. I also have some paper towels that I like to use for cleaning off my brushes. And for our brushes today, we are going to try to get this painting completed a little bit more loosely using just 4 brushes. I have a large, about 1-inch wide angled brush. I have about a 1/2-inch angled brush, or a little smaller than that even, right here. We also have a soft bristled brush that's about a 1/4 inch. This is a really good brush for blending, getting nice soft little hazy lights on the snow and the tree. And then we have this little guy here, is just like a number 1 or 2, number 1 actually, round tip brush. All right, so those are our materials for today. Let's get started with this tutorial. Alright, to get started with this tutorial, I am going to take some of my cobalt blue, just dip the brush in the water. I'm using my small round tip brush just to sketch out the concept first. I'll mix a little bit of black in there too. So for this painting, I looked up a few different reference images to get inspiration online. I'm going to be creating something new that's not a copy of any of those. So I'm going to be a little imaginative with the layout here, but in general, I'm thinking that I want to just have like a festive holiday tree, maybe that goes about this tall, so we have a little bit of sky behind the tree visible there. Maybe come down to about here, so we've got a little bit of snow at the base of the painting. And then in general, the tree is going to have a triangle shape, just kind of coming out and a little bit above that bottom part. And then about center is where our little stump will be. And then we're just keeping it really simple, basic shapes for now. We're going to do more detail later. This is just to kind of eyeball where things are going to go in the painting. Okay, so we got that main focal point tree sketched out roughly there. I'm going to throw a couple little trees behind this one. I think I'm going to make them a little smaller, a little farther in the distance. So for these ones, I'm just going to do the center points and then just like a quick little thing like that, just so I have an idea of where these trees are going to be. I'll put another one. Let's put it over here, a little about the same height, but a little farther away. And same thing, and I can just come out from the base there, and we'll put another tree a little closer here. Same thing, kind of coming out like that. And not sure if I'll be able to fit another top of a tree, but we can have another one start to come off the side there like that. And then we're gonna have just like sky up here and snowbank down here, kind of like this. All right, so that was relatively easy to sketch out. Just to give you an idea of how things are going to lay out in the painting. You are welcome to do the same amount of trees that I have, or you could just do one tree and no other trees in the background. I am going to do some fun little things to keep the focus on this tree in the front. We're not going to light up those trees in the background. We're going to use less contrast, have them a little bit darker in value in general, and all those things are going to help bring our attention to this tree in the foreground. So now that I got it sketched out, I'm going to put this brush in the water. And I'm going to take my large brush and I'm going to start working on the dark snowy sky. So for that, I'm going to start with my phthalo blue with some black and some naphthol red. Dip the brush in the water a little. Start to get a little bit of white blending in there. I think I want to have some purple. And I'm liking that color a lot, and I want it to look kind of like the snow is like blowing at the tree here. So I'm just going to use these brush strokes going back and forth. Now that I got the colors that I know I want, I can blend more on the palette. Let's do a little bit of green in there too. And I'm just getting a nice, good, even coverage of paint. I'm really pushing the brush into the canvas panel so that we don't leave any little white spaces. See, if you use less pressure, it leaves all these little marks where it drags on the canvas panel. So by using more force with your brush strokes, just mixing more black and blue in on the edge here, and purple. Just want it to be a little darker on the outer edges. And just keep using more pressure to push down and get that paint on the canvas. Using loose, fast brush strokes. Okay, mix a little more white. Blue, purple, black. And just kind of, in general, go around that tree about to where your other trees are going to be, the branches are going to be popping out. We can always layer over this background color. That's what we're going to be doing next. So don't try to get that background like perfectly around your borders yet, because with acrylic paint we can just layer up over all that. Just blending a little bit more white in, just throwing a couple little quick brush strokes in there, taking more black and blue, purple. Getting a little darker around this side edge of the canvas here. Keeping those back and forth brush strokes in general. A couple other little brush strokes in there, but mostly staying the same brush strokes. All right, now that we got that on there, while this paint is still kind of tacky, a little bit wet, I'm gonna take some more white and more of my Naphthol red, some of my yellow Hansa white, and a little more of that red, a little more yellow, a little more white, and I'm just gonna brighten things up right around this tree, kind of following those same back and forth brush strokes, but I want to keep things a little lighter, bringing the focus in around our nice little tree here. Take some more white, just right there at the top of the tree. Can throw a few more of those little brush strokes, kind of carrying out, but not too much. Okay, it's got a nice loose brush strokes there. Okay, next we're going to work on these trees in the background. For that, I can start with this brush. So I'm going to take my Cobalt blue. I'm just going to blend it right on the canvas, or on the palette here. Cobalt blue, some white, tiny bit of phthalo blue, and some purple, some umber. And let's do some more white for now. All right, so we're gonna hold the brush at an angle like this so we can get the top part of this tree. And just start doing those back and forth brush strokes, now holding the brush differently so we can get nice little tree limbs here. I'm just building up over that background, taking the brush strokes out. Starting with kind of a neutral color value here. Starting with the next one. Just holding the brush so I can get some smaller little marks. All coming out from that central point, getting wider as they're getting farther down the tree. Okay, and then I'm just gonna basically take these most of the way down. Same thing over here. Gonna get this one at the top. Covering up all the white space. I don't want to leave any little white spots where the canvas is peeking through. I want it to be nice and saturated with paint. Try to use a similar brushstroke pattern for all of your trees. Like mine all have this top little branch and then the rest just kind of coming out in little U shapes, brushstrokes. Unless you purposely would like to paint different species of trees in this little patch of forest. All right, carrying this down, getting a little more white, a little more cobalt. And like I said, this one, the top's going to be kind of off of the canvas there, but we can still get these branches coming in, covering up the white space. And I'm going to carry this all the way down again to the base of that tree. Okay, and then down here I want it to be pretty dark again. Just mixing in my black with some cobalt. And we're going to carry this under the base of our tree, focal point tree. And just kind of going rough at the bottom part of the tree here so it's not that perfect straight line anymore. I want to rough those edges out a little. That'll help make the tree look a little more realistic. And then I'm just kind of blending up into these other trees that we had in the background. Covering up all that white space again. Try not to leave any voids. Let's blend that a little bit there. All right, black, cobalt. And we're using acrylic paint, so we do need to work relatively fast. If you are brand new to acrylic painting, it might make sense for you to give this a practice run, try this painting one time, see how well you do, and then try it again and see how you improve the second time around. Another tip I know I'm a little late saying this tip, but would be for you to just start out with these cooler colors first, and then when you're ready to start adding in more of these other trees and things, then you can add the other colors to your palette so that they don't dry out too fast if you're a little bit more slow as you're new to acrylic painting. Okay, next I'm going to take some more black and cobalt, a little bit of purple. Actually, you know what? We're going to put that brush in the water. I'm going to take my smaller angled brush, dip that in the water just a little bit, and then I'm going to take that cobalt and black mixture that I had, add even more cobalt, and a little bit of umber. And then I'm just going to start adding in some shadows where these trees are not snow covered. So just making a couple little lines and marks and different patterns, different thicknesses in the brush strokes. Try to show that we've got some branches. All kind of coming out from that central point. Okay, moving on to the next one. One more black. Just keeping these brush strokes coming out from that central part of the tree, different angles, a bit more black as we're getting closer to the base. Alright, those are looking good. Let's move on over to this side. Holding the brush. I'm not pressing as strongly here, using a little less pressure, and I don't have a whole lot of paint on my brush. If you have too much paint on your brush, then you're going to have texture and it's going to go on not quite as detailed, which, you know, if that's the look that you're going for, then keep doing what you're doing. This is another good time to keep an eye out for any little white spots that may be peeking through the canvas here. Just gonna mix a little bit more umber in. Really just scribbling around with the brush. Now I am using a little more pressure because I have less paint on my brush. So I want to just kind of get it in there without mixing more colors. All right, take some more cobalt, a little bit of white. You can get some more of the branches over here. Okay, and I'm just gonna clean that brush off in the water, get the extra paint off of the brush and onto my napkin. Nice clean brush. Okay, and next we're gonna take some of our white with Cobalt. So this is going to be lighter in value than what we had before. And now we can add a little bit more snow. So we're layering up what we had before. And we're not putting it like 100% over every single middle tone, like first brush stroke that we put to just to lay out the shape of the tree. Like you want to leave some of that still visible. This is just kind of putting like a nice little highlight on some of the snowy parts here. So just where we've got nice highlight of some snow on the branches. And you want to take a look at your values here. So value is how light to dark something is. So if your highlight for the snow is really, really standing out against that background color, then you might want to add in a little bit more cobalt, maybe a tiny bit of black too. If it's barely standing out over the other colors you had, then maybe add a little bit more white to bring it up in value some more. Right now I want it to come down in value. And I'm just going to have a big snowbank kind of piling up all the snow over there. Okay, over here, got a little bit more. And I'm really loosely putting this on. I don't want it to take forever. I don't want it to be super detailed because these aren't really the focal point anyway. And I am trying to go a little bit looser with the brush strokes in this painting in general. So these bits of snow on the branches that are facing us here don't come like straight down, like they kind of come like a little bit more like a U shape like this, and then the ones on the sides kind of stick out a little bit more. You know, we do have some that kind of angle down as we're getting a lot of snow on the branches and they're just kind of caving under the weight at the bottom there. And then we can just take a little bit of this snow highlight color we had and just kind of dry brush it so there's barely any paint left on your brush. You're just kind of pushing it around there. And now we've got that. I am going to take a little bit of white and some of this raw sienna, a little bit yellow and red, and I want to add a little highlight on these parts of the snow because the tree here is going to be lightening these up. So I'm just gonna, I put that paint down, now I'm just blending it. I took the extra paint off my brush, I'm just pushing the paint around. So it's subtle, but now you can tell like there's definitely gonna be some light on our main tree here. Put a little bit of light on there, the snow too. And then mix it in with some blue again. Okay, next let's go over here. Let's do some white with our cobalt again. Get the highlights for the snow like we did on this side. Using my brush just to get some angles. Pushing it around, picking random little spots to add highlights over the darker shadows where there's some snow. Following that same pattern I did before, where The snowy branches facing us are here, are sticking down just a little bit, but not too much. Mixing in a little bit more cobalt on this side, a little bit more in shadow over here. Okay, and a little bit more cobalt and white for up here. A little more cobalt, a hint of black and brown. A little bit of red just to bring that vibrancy down a little. And this one's not going to be as bright. It's a little farther in the background, just implying that there's some snow back here. Don't want anything to stand out too much back there. It's just like, oh hey, there's another tree back there. All right, now I'm gonna go back and mix that same kind of color I did before for this little highlight. So we got some raw sienna, some of that Naphthol red and yellow Hansa and white. And I'm just gonna highlight. I'm gonna take a little bit more white. And I'm just highlighting these little bits of snow-covered branches here. So it looks like our tree is just bringing out all that brightness. A little bit more right here. Taking the extra paint off my brush. Same thing I did last time, just blending it in. So it's not standing out too much. Trying to keep it pretty subtle. Taking more of our cobalt, blue and white mixture. Just kind of dry brush a little bit more of that. Go over it with some of our highlights again. All right, we are ready to start the main attraction here, which is our big Christmas tree. So I'm going to start with let's start dark and then we'll add our highlights for this one. So I'm going to start with my green and purple and some phthalo blue and some white. And I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow in there as well. A little bit more phthalo blue and white. Just trying to get this very specific color. Mix a little bit more green in there. So it's a really dark green, like a dark purpley green color. All right, we're gonna start with the dark. So we want the top of the tree to be about there. Gonna do what we did for the other ones. So we've got little branches coming out from, if it helps you to make a center line, we can do that too. Let's do that first. And now you know where all your little branches are going to come out from. I'll just fill in some of that space there, just for fun. Okay. And now let's go back to our branches. So make sure your branches are coming out farther from that central point as you're painting them in here. Using this angled brush, I'm pulling away from the center. Some of them are going to kind of point down. Some of them are going to have other little branches coming out from that main central one. So this year, this is 2023, December, I have most of my available paintings in a solo exhibition, and a lot of those paintings I had on display in my home. And when I took them to the solo exhibition, all of my walls were bare, and it's also the holiday season, so that's what sparked my idea to create this tutorial for you guys. I had some selfish intentions as well of creating this so that I have something to put on my walls during the holidays, and especially right now when I have barely any art on the walls in my house. And that made me wonder if you guys have any holiday themed paintings up in your home, and if you guys like have a painting that you like to have in a certain spot most of the time of the year, and then if you swap out that painting for like a holiday themed painting from like November to January. I was just wondering if anybody else does that, or if you guys, you know, buy a piece of wall art and that is on permanent display. Let me know in the comments. All right, we're still working on our little branches coming out from the center here. And you can see that my brush strokes are pretty chaotic, like they're trying to come out in a pattern from the center, you know, not a symmetrical pattern, but following a pattern still. And in the center though, it's just kind of like chaos with the brush strokes. But that's okay, because we're gonna be covering up a lot of those later. All right, so as we're getting toward the base, I'm just gonna mix a little bit more color here. Green and purple and phthalo blue. And just want to get these last little bits of tree limb in there. So I covered up a good bit of what we had back there, so that's something that you can't really come back to as easily now that we covered up part of it. So hopefully you guys felt pretty confident with what you had there. There's a couple little sections we can still brighten up, but for the most part, they're covered up. Okay, back to the base. So for the base here, we want to do just a couple little brush strokes going in different directions. You don't want it to be like a super smooth, solid line. It's going to be choppy and different little branches visible. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. And then you can just take some of your burnt sienna, or burnt, what is that color? Raw sienna, raw umber, my bad, and just put that little trunk down in there. If you want to put a little bit of raw sienna on there, then you can. And then I'll just warm it up a bit. Okay, so while this is drying a bit more, I'm gonna go back to my large brush and just dry that off. You don't have to clean it off like too well, because we're gonna be using these same blues that we had in there before. So I'm mixing phthalo blue and purple and black. A little bit of naphthol. Okay, and we're gonna start out kind of dark on the edges here. Mixing in a little bit more cobalt and purple. Some spots. Just make it fun and colorful. Mix in a little more black, white. Mix a little bit of my raw sienna in there. And I'm starting at the edges and working my way into center, where I'm going to take more white, cobalt, clean things up a little here, just loose brush strokes, kind of covering up all that white space we had. Just some pure cobalt right here. Want to blend more white right there so it can stand out a bit more. And I'm just going to bring this up to my back of my tree, little stump. Same thing on this side. If you want to use a smaller brush, you can there. Alright, and we're getting a nice little blend. Okay, I'm going to switch to my smaller angled brush now, and we're going to take some of our yellow Hansa and some raw sienna, a little bit of naphthol red, and just put a little bit of those colors right down here. mix in a little bit of our Naphthol and some raw umber. Let that blend out into the snow color. And I'm just gonna take a little bit more of my cobalt, purple, raw umber, and I'm gonna make it pretty dark, like we have a little shadow right under the tree. Go back to my black and just add that back in there. Kind of let it blend in a little bit. Like some snow is covered in there. I'm even going to widen the stump just a bit. There, it's pretty soft looking. And then we're going to go back to our highlight colors. And I'm just going to make a nice little ledge here at the back side of the tree, because that side is also going to be lit up by snow, but it's going to be pretty shadowy right under the tree. So I'm just mixing these colors. You kind of want to transition from that yellow color to the pink to the purple to the blue. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more of my white with the lighter colors there. Take a little bit of that yellow. And just blending it. Take a little bit more cobalt. Kind of want to make this hillside like come up behind the tree a little bit more like that. And you don't have to do that, you can if you'd like. Just wanted a little bit more variation in the left and right side of this tree. And just keep playing with it until you're happy. Gonna touch up my tree base again here. Alright, that looks nice. Okay. The tree's dry enough at this point that I think we can start to add some of our fun little lights and some snow on all these branches. So first I'm going to start with more of the snowy branches. I'm going to take my white, blend that in with some cobalt, kind of like we did for these other ones. We're just going to use a little bit of raw sienna, a little bit of purple, and a little bit more white, and then our cobalt, just so the color stands out a little bit more from these trees. Okay, and now we can start to add some snow. So I'm just gently pressing here towards the top, Putting some snow on these little branches, the tree. So anywhere you have a limb coming out, if you want to put some snow on there, you can. And you can play around holding your brush at different angles to see how that applies the paint onto the canvas. And I'm being a little bit more careful with this one because this is our focal point. This tree is where everybody's going to look when they first look at this painting. Got our little bits snow coming off right there. And I'm using a little bit less. So I'm putting some paint down, getting it off on both sides of the brush, and then whenever there's less paint on the brush, I'm kind of blending that snow, take the extra paint off your brush, color like in so that it's less bright, closer to the inner part of the tree. So it's giving you a little variation, making this tree look like it's standing out a little bit more, like three-dimensionally, not just flat. A little more. Taking a little bit more purple and phthalo mixed with a little bit of naphthol. Yeah, just want it to be a little bit darker in value as we're getting closer to the bottom of the tree. And we're going to mix in a little bit of black and cobalt. As we're down here, where even less light is getting in. Okay, got most of that covered. Looking good. And I'm going to take a little bit more of this darker color and just add a couple more little subtle spots on the left and right side where not as much light is making it over there. Just pushing a little more paint around, dry brushing a bit. Okay, so now we got the snow on the tree. Next step is to add all of the pretty lights. So you can put these little lights wherever you want. I am going to start with this softer bristled flat tip brush, and we're going to start with just like the fluffy glow around each of the lights, and then we'll add the light in the center of that glow, and it's going to make this tree come to life. All right, so to paint in that little glow, I'm going to use my Cad Yellow Deep with a little bit of Naphthol Red and some white. A little bit more white. Maybe a tiny bit of, tiny bit more Naphthol Red. It's easy to overdo it with that color. Okay, and I'm going to start by just picking out wherever I want to add some pretty little lights. So I'm just going to start at the top and work my way down. So I'm just going to put a little dab right there. And I kind of want to follow, like, they're all spiraling around the tree for the most part. It's not going to be perfect, but Just adding all these little dots. Just following this diagonal. It's not a perfect diagonal. And I'll do a couple, little more at the base there. Okay, so now that we got those on there, we're gonna take the extra paint off of our brush and we're just gonna fluff these all out. So you're just gonna go right at each one. And it really helps to have this fluffy, soft bristled brush because it's giving me the exact brush stroke that I want. Like it's just really, see that little glow around each of these little spots. That's exactly what I want it to do. And if you need to add a little bit more paint to get it to glow more, you can do that. Just the big thing here is don't use too much paint, because if you use too much paint, it's gonna get streaky and it's not gonna do this nice little glow look that I'm going for here. Take a little bit more yellow, softening them up. A little bit more yellow. So you want to have a nice soft edge for all these. You don't want to have like a really harsh circle. You want to have nice soft blend going out. Okay, and once we get that done, then next I want to take some white with my Cad Yellow Deep and some of my Yellow Hansa Light and just add some little dots in all of these little glowing spots. And these can be a little bit harsher. So see, it just looks like they're glowing on the tree because we did that little halo of light around them first. Just putting one in each of the little spots. Gonna add another little fuzzy light spot right there. Okay, looks good. I'm just gonna soften up the edge on this one a little bit. And this one. Okay, so now we got that. The next step now is to show this warmth, like glow of light on the snow. So we're going to take some of our Naphthol red, mix in with our yellow deep and some white. And maybe a little bit of that raw sienna color. And I'm going to mix in a little bit of cobalt just to calm it down, a little bit of purple. Because it's not going to be quite as bright as it is on these other sections. All right, and then we're going to just take our little brush, and anywhere that there's like snow near a light, you want to add that nice little warmth, that warm glow. And it's not everywhere, only near a light. And I'm really gently pressing here, not using too much pressure. Gonna mix a little bit more purple down here. Soften that up a bit. Barely using any pressure here. Just gently letting this bits of light go on the tree. I'm gonna get some more up here. I'm gonna mix more white in, a little bit more yellow. Just gently placing this little glow on the snow. More at the top. Just gonna touch up that little spot again. Okay. Can brighten the snow up here. One more too. I'm gonna take a little bit of white now, with barely any other color on it, and we're just gonna put little dabs of white in some of these little lights, and that'll help to give them even more glow, because the white is even brighter than the yellow. You can take some more white and a little tiny bit of cobalt and brighten up a couple spots near your whites, near the glowy part of the snow. That's what I meant to say. Sometimes I just get in the zone and forget how to talk. Putting a couple more little bits of that lighter snow around there. All right, and then another thing we can do is near the glowing lights where there's not a snow-covered branch, we have the tree. So you can mix some of your sap green with your red. And maybe a little bit of raw sienna, and now you can have parts of the tree that are kind of glowing too. So only around the lights, if there's no snowy covered branch, and just put a little bit of green. Can have them come in different directions. And you can use some sections, just use a little bit more green and purple, build up a bit more depth and dimension, especially near the base of the tree. It's a lot darker. So we're just building up all this contrast. Everything that we're doing here is drawing more attention to this tree in the foreground. gonna add a little bit more of my cobalt and white down here. Just brighten these little bits of snow up some more. And last, I'm just gonna brighten up the snow around this tree a little bit more. So I'm gonna mix my white with my burnt sienna and that warm yellow, and just kind of dry brushing it. It's not totally covered in paint. Pushing a little bit of paint around, but not too much. And we're gonna let that transition out to the other snow by mixing in some red, a little bit of purple, a little bit of blue, and more white. So it gives us that kind of muted pink color. Just letting it blend. And now we can take some purple, white, cobalt. And I'll mix a little bit of that pink color in there. And I'm going to mix more of my cobalt and white. Now I'm just looking at the painting and seeing where I think I want to make any little adjustments. A bit more highlight on there. And I think that is a finished painting. The last thing you guys can do if you want is you can add some snow to the sky, which I'm not gonna do. I like it just like this. But if you do want to add like snow to the sky, then what you can do is take your large brush and you're gonna get it mixed into like some white with a little bit of blue. You're gonna get a little bit of water on the brush, blend it in so it's nice and wet on the canvas, and then hold your finger back to pull the brush backwards like this, and then you just kind of let go, like boom, boom, with your finger, kind of like flick the paint, the wet paint onto the canvas, and it'll give you like splatters of snow. And I'm sure there are lots of videos that can show you how to do that, but I really like how this is, and I don't want to take that risk because that goes all over the canvas. And I think it looks pretty good right now. All right, painting friends, that wraps up our tutorial for how to paint a Christmas tree in a forest of other pine trees. This is a special Christmas tree. So I hope you enjoyed this painting tutorial. If you have recommendations for future painting tutorials, you can leave a comment below and I will add that to my list of tutorials to create. I would like to wish you all a very joyous holiday season and a happy and healthy new year. Have a wonderful day, happy holidays, and happy painting!